Welcome to another episode of the Thunderstock Show, a collection of valuable brainstorms to enhance your life, liberty, and pursuit of property. Today, in our series of EOS implementers, is Chris Castillo. Chris spent years before EOS running the Life Coach School. He has traveled from the West Coast of California with a diverse background, can't wait to get into, and has ended up in Texas around the Dallas, Fresno, Fort Worth area. And we're going to have a great conversation all about how Chris has changed his life and the lives of his clients with coaching and EOS. Chris, I'm not going to spoil anything else. Let me ask you the first question is, what did you go to school for? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Great question. Thanks, Ross, for having me. I appreciate the time. I didn't know. Back when I graduated or was going to graduate, I didn't really have a plan. It was either become a Marine, because that's what my dad did. I knew I didn't want to be a butcher because that's what he did as well. So I decided to go to college and figure it out as we went along. I ended up getting a job at Hewlett Packard. And in those days, that was it. You worked at HP, IBM, the post office, you were set for life. So I'm like, this is great. And I went to school the whole time I was there. Unbeknownst to me, that didn't last forever. It was only 18 years, which was a long time. And then suddenly I was out of work when everything changed over in 2000 and had to do something. My wife at the time and I started a company. Let's do a service business. And I had no idea how to run a business. I was always in a business. And that was the best teaching ever of running a service-based business where you have to talk to the client, you have to sell your services, you have to show up on time. And funny enough, it was a pool service business in Sacramento. So if anybody knows anything about Sacramento, in those days, everybody was moving there. So every neighborhood had brand new homes, nice front yards, dirt in the back. So there was landscape trucks and pool trucks in every neighborhood. So lots of opportunity, but also how do you differentiate between all the other people out there doing the same thing? Did that, had to become a general contractor to differentiate, do all that. Once I sold that after, that was 4 or 5 years, I ended up working with my wife at the time on working with her life coach about redoing her business. And then she wanted to do her own thing. So in 2010, we started the life coach school.
Okay.
And her vision, I became the integrator, the back office running the day-to-day. And growing that business to the point of about 2 million in revenue, and then we hit the ceiling. We realized, okay, we want to move this forward. We couldn't do it in California. It was just so hard to get people and the prices and all that stuff. Moved to Texas in 2017 to scale the business, i.e. hire people, manage people, and realized pretty quick we didn't have a framework to run in. We hire somebody, I'm like, you got the work, right? Call me if you need any help. I'm going to go do something else. And that was my management style, which was not very effective. And we found during those travels of finding EOS out of the book Traction, it helped us scale the business, doubled every year. I ended up selling and decided after my buddy said, hey, whatever you do with your business, come do for my business. So I could either be a consultant, but I'm like, I'd rather do EOS. It's already done. Let's just go do that. Got trained in 2020 and started trying to help clients. My first client was my landscaper and family-owned business, and just helping them get optimized, clean up what's not working in their business so they can actually double their revenue. So they were trying to go from 25 to 50. Great learning just from first client out the gate. But that's how I started, and that was in 2020.
Wow, there's so many twists and turns along the way. First and most notably was the fact that you started and exited 2 businesses. I feel like a lot of people don't have the experience of going 2 for 2 with like having a successful start and then graceful exit, whether that was like supremely life-changing liquidity event or just, hey, we're moving on to something that's more fulfilling with, without the downside of having the transition of the old business. So what was it like with your first exit and what did you learn from it for your second?
It was, so I think in both cases, overall, I think in both businesses, we were ahead of the curve, meaning I'm in a market that was growing. And once you get established, I actually partnered with a pool builder. So I would get calls every week for, hey, there's a new pool and you just go take care of it. And I'm like, this is great. So by chance and by happening a meeting with one of the guys there, we just built a report. And I go from 40 clients to 120 clients. And the choice was hire more people and get more clients or sell. That's what a lot of they started and they sell it and they start again. And that's how the guy I bought the business from, he would build it up, sell it, build it up and sell it. He wanted to do a different part of the business. So I think I was ahead of the curve, lots of opportunity. And half the battle is showing up on time.
Right.
You pay me to show up every week. I show up every week. And from a base, at the end of the day, your pool is clean. I'm proud of it. And you can be happy. You don't call me. There's no issues. It is. You just show up and do great work. Take care of your client. Same with the life coach school of we were doing that before life coaching was a thing.
Right.
I couldn't get business insurance because there were no category called life coaching back in the day.
Whoa.
I like to say in my story, no one knew what a life coach was unless you watched Oprah or listened to Tony Robbins. It was that long ago. And so we were ahead of that curve, and to the point where people didn't know that there was an opportunity to become a coach. And then once that happened, the next iteration was some of these people didn't know how to run a business as a life coach. So we helped them with that. And then some never wanted to run a business, so they came to coach for us. So it is a great model where you have people that get coached, they want to become a coach, don't want to run a business, so they come back and coach. And so it's a great model that perpetuates itself. When we decided on the 10-year target, it was 100 million in revenue over 10 years. And we had it up on the wall and everybody knew it on their interview, and we talked about it all the time and we measured it constantly. And again, making money is great, but if you don't know how you're making the money and where it's coming from, where it's going that's a whole different level of self. So we had to, there are months where you're like, I don't know if we're going to make the mortgage because things aren't selling right now. What do we do? And so what I talk to clients all the time is you can be in your business, but you got to pull yourself out and look at the business. We say every 90 days at least, so you can get a sense of, are you on track with your plan or not? Because you could be making money and it's all great and you blink and it's over. The bank account's empty, or taxes are due and you don't have the emergency fund set up yet, or somebody sues you, or whatever it is, right?
Right.
That kind of everything, running a business. So you're juggling a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah, people always love to focus on the upside of entrepreneurship. It's like the new trend, I guess. What used to be
The tip of
probably
the iceberg, right? It's like, this is amazing. They don't see anything below the water.
People probably had the same opinion of, say, like lawyers or doctors, where it's like, oh, I can make so much income. And it's like, yeah, but then do you want to see your family? Do you want to sleep? Do you want to have the increased risk for mental health afflictions like depression and anxiety, which they suffer because of the job being super stressful?
Yes.
Like they don't tell you that, when they're selling the dream. Same with entrepreneurship. What are some commonalities between the life coaching and the EOS? And then how did you make that transition from life coaching to EOS?
Honestly, it was more of I needed something to do. And I realized that I can run a business. I much prefer helping people run a business and avoid the things I had to go through. Like we talked earlier, staying up till 2 a.m., catching up on Thursday, that stuff that should have been done Monday. Or Monday starts and you get into your email and do customer service, you blink and it's Tuesday. You didn't sell anything, but you're just taking stuff over the weekends. And that's the kind of stuff that just sort of brings you down in a business. And I didn't realize till after I started my own practice with EOS, talking to clients, and the emotional aspect of this. They are struggling in their business and it's emotional. People are involved. People are imperfect. And you're trying to do something that's positive when you have imperfect people trying to work together, and having those conversations when things don't go well. And I didn't know if I had that capacity. I was afraid of getting in a conversation with somebody that was being emotional about something that I couldn't fix, because that's how I was raised. You're like, well, you fix things. That's what you do. That's one of your unique abilities. And that's okay. I do that. But then I realized I don't have to. With EOS, the tool will help them decide what will work for them. So we say the answer is always in the room. We don't have to provide it. We teach the system, we teach the tools, we facilitate the discussion so they can have the aha moment. And we coach them when we have to coach them off the ledge sometimes.
So you have plenty of experience with the coaching aspect, but now you want to live the EOS life where you don't have to you can alleviate the pain, so to speak, for people that were in a similar boat of you, whether their company had rapid growth and that's stressful, believe it or not, everyone listening, sometimes be careful what you wish for because there's new challenges at new heights. or they're stressed because they might not make payroll. And there's that emotional thing that you don't have to sit in it. You can look out above and onto it
Yeah.
and provide that intermediary type. So, one question, Chris, that I kind of got to ask you is, you said that this was your old business partner. One of them was your ex-wife,
Yeah.
and you were the integrator. Do you, and if this is too personal, I
No, it's all
apologize,
good. It's all good.
but do you think that she was the wrong person, right seat, both in business and in life?
Yes.
Can you shed any light or details on the decision to not only get into business with said person, but also then exit and then maybe divorce? Like what happened? Was it just what's that story?
Yeah, so it's interesting because of my experience, I work with a lot of family-owned businesses that are going through this, and family-owned business, that's a whole different level of dysfunction because not only are you business partners, but you're life partners. You have to, and unfortunately, we take a lot of this stuff home with us, and but also we knew she was the visionary, I was the integrator when it came to doing things, and you also in a company there's a level where you're really good at what you do at whatever stage of the company. So there's people that are great at the startup phase, people that are great at the maturing phase, people that are great at the exiting phase, and so forth. I got to the point where I replaced myself in the business, and it was time to do something different because I replaced myself in all the things that I was doing that was keeping me up at night, and we got the right team in the right seat. So I could leave and feel I was good with it. And she wanted a 100% woman owned company. So really, I was there to
Huh.
help her dream come true. And that's what we talked about. And that's what it was the best thing for the company and for us. Because honestly, as a husband and wife running a business, I have a couple clients like this. You are in danger of this oozing into everything that you live and breathe for, and you stop having the conversation about how about us. And I'm
Right.
I'm guilty of that, of not asking those questions and being able to making sure we're okay. And that's just because you have the business and you're raising kids and everything's going great and all these great things. And then you look up and you've heard that story where you have a couple and they raise kids, the kids go to college and look at each other and like, who are you? And
Mm-hmm.
we might not want the same things. And so, but being able to talk about that is huge. And it was unfortunate at the same time it happened. You can't, I mean, it happened because it happened. So
It was
when
just a
I got,
stage of it was just a life cycle stage of life and business.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And, you see that visual people meeting together and ideally they stay at the same level, or sometimes somebody grows and they grow apart or just stop growing. And I realized it was my time to look at things differently and change how I was doing my potential business and digging deep into research and reading and getting coached, getting therapy about who am I, what's going on. Because also, the other aspect nobody talks about, you sell a business, you're successful and you sell a business, that's your identity. And I went through that too. You're like, who am I
Mm.
now? Because I'm not going to work every day and no one calls me boss or anything like that. And you're like, you get sort of lost. And I talk to my clients that way that want to sell. I'm like,
That's
okay,
insane. That's insanely poignant, Chris, because people always talk about the sunshine and rainbows of you make a profitable exit. They don't talk about the
yep,
identity problem, which
yes,
I think needs to be talked about more in conversations. I
yes.
I've been a part of several acquisition process, both buy sell. It is psychologically like an ego death for many people.
Yes. Or they have nothing to do, or their wife's like, "What are you doing here? Go do something." You can't play enough golf. Honestly, you tried it, you can't do it. So you got to find your new identity because when you leave a business, you're going into something else, whatever that is. Sometimes I recommend a coach. Typically, when we get everybody on the right team, the right people in the right seats, it frees up the owner or the visionary and they have more time. And I'm like, you should start getting a coach now because you have the time to start thinking about your next evolution. Because your team is being self-managed. They don't need you as much anymore. So don't feel like you're being replaced. Feel like this is an opportunity for you to go to the next version of yourself.
Man, you said a quote that I actually repeat quite often, and I'm sure it goes around the EOS ecosystem, which is you can't read the bottle from inside, read the label from inside the bottle.
That's
That's
right.
what the quote is.
Yeah.
And I think one of the benefits, at least from my own experience, is that you can have the you can have a therapist for your life to talk about whatever you want. You can have a EOS implementer to help bring structure to your business and clarity and all those good things. But a coach is somewhere sits in the middle of those things.
Yeah.
And for me, I invest in a coach, and I kind of wish I would have done this years ago. My
Yes.
biggest issue with coaching is I didn't do it sooner, because I
Yeah.
look at it like, hey, I'm going to info dump the things that I feel like are issues, whether that's partially on some parts life, some parts business. I need you to give me, objective third party like feedback to help me see what I'm missing on the label, because I'm in it too much. And that's been one of the benefits that I've experienced, and I had to talk to others that have experienced with coaches, versus the EOS is like, this is the system, this is the structure. Therapist is, let's unpack your feelings and talk about your childhood, which is great. They're both incredibly excellent. But I feel like for some people, the coach is that conduit in between, and maybe they need all three. Who's to say?
Yeah. And we talk about that too, because, and just from experience back in the day, most men didn't want to get a coach because they thought it was therapy. And there's a sense of, social anxiety or whatever, however you want to call it, against doing that. Like you're flawed and it's that, shunned feeling like no one's going through this except for me. What the reality is, we're all going through it. It just depends how we handle it. So we didn't have a lot of coaches in our business. It was mostly all women.
Mm.
And towards the mid 2015, 16, so forth, we started getting more men showing up because men need a coach, executive coach, dating coach, loss of parents, all
Mm.
that. Everybody needs a blank. They need a blank coach. And what I like to say is a therapist talks about the past and helps you reconcile, whereas a coach gets you unstuck because they don't want to talk about the past, because people that live in the past will never grow.
Okay.
There was always a victim
Mm.
mentality a lot of that time because they can't change the past and you can't argue with it. So yeah, let's recognize it and let it go, because the stages of grief you go through over and over again, you don't think you're healing, but you actually are. And a coach can get you. I went from a therapist, which was amazing. Wouldn't trade it for the world. Talk about talking off the ledge sometimes, but just letting you, for me, the turning point was hearing myself say certain things and realize I know the answer. Like, okay,
Mm.
now I'm getting it. And then I move from that point into strategic coach, which allows you to become a better business professional and take that to the next level. So I feel like everybody needs a coach at one time or another. I mean, Tom Brady has more than one coach, and all these amazing people have coaches. They have them because, again, they can't see their blind side. They don't know what's working, what's not. They think it's fine, but unless you have some really good friends that can tell you, it's like, you need to slow down or something's going wrong. How can I help? Let's go talk about this. That's the kind of people you need. And I think you find that when you get help and get coaching, and then you can start feeling out who your really good men friends are that'll sit in the mud with you and just hold you.
Yeah, and I think it's so fascinating to me, the stigma or the perception that specifically men in our culture would have. Traditionally, it's been one of the shows that was largely popular on HBO, The Sopranos, if you're familiar with that.
Yep.
May have been one of the first times that showed the alpha male macho
Yep.
mob boss going to see therapy, and Tony having to wrestle with, nobody better know I'm here, this would ruin me. Like, see, I mean, I'm only through season one. Full transparency, I watch it while I'm working out. Yeah, but my point with that story of The Sopranos is like, that was the first time in pop culture that it was really addressed as a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And secondly, I'm surprised about the coaching thing too, because they probably have this, like, the Venn diagram overlapping too much of sort of what the roles are, and maybe the coaching figures had an unfair shake of things. But like you mentioned with Tom Brady, when I think about some of the most influential people that would have been mentor figures or quote unquote teachers growing up, sure, there were some teachers that I had going through school that were influential, but a lot of the people that I remember their lessons were the coaches I had through, whether it was athletics or whether that was through something else.
Yeah.
It could be if
Yeah.
someone's in band when they're growing up, maybe they're a director or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it look, I mean, you're at a different stage in life when you're an entrepreneur. You're not ashamed to have a wrestling coach. Why would you be ashamed to have a business coach? It's the
Yes.
same, they're fulfilling the same function at a different stage.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we talked about entrepreneurship. Unfortunately, most entrepreneurs are so busy being busy or stuck in their business. They don't have time to read, to get a coach, to even have clarity breaks around their business. They're just busy trying to make money or not, pay bills or not get sued or whatever they're doing. Right. So unfortunately, those are the ones that barely make it, or those are the ones that, are killing themselves in a lot of different ways just to run a business. And imagine adding people to that mix and that
Mhm.
complexity and then all those things. So we EOS we say we help you manage human energy, not only your people but yourself. And if we can get your time back, you can spend that time outside the business and start answering your own questions about what's working, what's not. And if we can just carve that out for you and your leadership team specifically, then they can start being self-managed. They can say, on their journey to become a self-managed EOS company. And then we just say, you graduated, you're doing great work, go do that. I'm going to go find somebody else to help, because it's like a rite of passage. I'm busy, therefore I'm successful. And I know a lot of companies making a
Mm,
million in revenue that have no profit. And it's unfortunate because it's there. They're not serving the right client. Their people aren't doing the right kind of work. There's no standard. The culture is terrible. There's 136 issues we talk about all the time.
right.
It's all there.
It could be any of them.
Yes.
What then do you find? Because a lot of what we're talking about, we're kind of dancing around one of the tools in EOS, which is the necessity of clarity breaks. Whether that looks like taking the time to take one per the EOS protocol, which is set times, you just
Yeah.
unplug, you and a piece of paper and a pen, and just jot it down, or that could be having a coaching session, right, to gain clarity.
Yes.
So
Yes.
what are what are some of the ways that you discuss and help to teach the clarity break tool specifically? Because it seems like it's integral to at least your own unique EOS journey.
Yes. Great question. So we teach that typically in the first or second or third quarterly, depending on the team. And we talk about that on the LMA component, the leadership management, which drives accountability role in the leader's seat. And we give them framework of like, are you doing this to help your people be successful? And most of the time we have 10 questions. Most of the time, a lot of them are no's because they haven't learned the EOS system yet. So we just set that expectation so they can start chipping away at making those a yes, but also the clarity break. How do you carve out time for you to get your head right and get things out of your head that may be holding you back? Because if something's taking up space in your head, there's no room for creativity, no room for solutions or anything like that. It could be taking a walk with your dog. It could be sitting in a corner like Junior used to do, go to a coffee shop with a yellow pad and just headphones and write stuff down. All the things that's swirling in your head that may never happen, just write it down. And you can look at it like, yeah, I don't have to worry about that anymore. All right. Or like, yeah, I need to talk to John about that. Now you have a meeting set. Again, it's out of your head. We do that on purpose with our teams so that before we set rocks for the quarter, which are the 90-day business priorities to move the company forward, we empty their head with everything going on with it, like making sure they're not thinking about that email or the phone call they had before they walked in the room, because that will hinder them from making great choices. And
Mm.
people underestimate that. They think they can multitask and they can't. I mean, you can't lead a session and we talk about this also, you can't lead a session and participate at the same time. It's one or the other. And to fully participate, you got to be in the seat and be able to think, I'm working on the business right now. How would I change or improve or fix or talk to this person moving forward? Even our sessions are clarity, somewhat giving them clarity so they can actually go back and execute with discipline and accountability, because most of the time they are reacting. They're the tyranny of the urgent, reacting to everything. They're afraid because they had a plan 89 days ago, but now they're like, everything's a dumpster fire. And like, no, no, slow down. Not everything's urgent. Let's talk about what the most important things are. And that's why if we help them with setting it, we said, pull out your calendars, pick a day, hopefully weekly, maybe monthly, pick a day, same time, starts on time, ends on time, the whole thing. Give yourself the gift of doing that. And I guarantee you'll come back a different person. It happens every time.
You mentioned an analogy that I want to touch on. It's interesting where if they don't take the clarity break, they come into the session and everything's a dumpster fire. I love thinking of issues in like three buckets. So one would be, like you said, dumpster fire, which is painful, typically localized or like easily identifiable and like discrete, right? It's an issue, but it's not going to ruin everything. It's just
Yeah.
painful in
Yeah.
the near term. And then what I think of as house fires, which are, if we don't solve this now, the whole ship's going down with it.
Yes.
which should be, hopefully to some obvious and then priority one. But the thing that people maybe overlook in this fire analogy is when they observe smoke, when it's like just starting, like the spark, like the begin. I can call it like a wastebasket fire, right? Like you accidentally threw out a battery that was bleeding and now it's in your trash can and it's starting like a chemical fire. It's nothing crazy yet. And I look at those as okay, that would be solved by preventative. And the other answer is like fix it now and don't even. It's not even it doesn't make it to the issues list. But do you find that there's a commonality between companies or integrator visionary combos that maybe want to feel comfortable being busy solving the wastebasket and dumpster fires, and then just like putting blinders on the big, hairy, audacious fire, the beehive?
Yes. And so we talk about that as not solving the root cause,
Mm.
solving the symptom. And because they don't slow down and ask, and a lot of times it's the individual. They're like, let's just put that out or throw it outside. It'll be fine. I'll get to it later. And they never get to it. Or ask the question like, what happened? How did we get here? Who started this? Why do they think that was okay? Because again, they don't have time to dig into it. And the chances of it coming back are really high. And then when we see it over and over again, we have to, again, slow down and say, okay, where is this coming from? Who owns it? Why do they think this is? It's like, why do you keep pulling bodies out of the river? And why don't you stop and go upstream and see who's throwing the bodies in? If we can do that, we'd save a lot of time, but it doesn't seem like it in the moment. That's why we have to get the team together when we talk about IDSing or solving issues. And you can tell after a little while, some teams are really good. Some teams just react and solve the symptom. And then it comes back. I'm like, what did we learn from last time? We didn't have we had a quick discussion. You thought it'd be solved, it'd be fine. No one wrote a process to make this never happen again or made the phone call. And that's the due diligence we need to have as a leadership team, because if we're not doing it, no one below you is doing it, which means it gets even worse.
Mm-hmm.
And it's counterintuitive for most people, or they think this is how you run a business is putting out dumpster fires. And I'm like, no, it's not. There's a better way. And there will be exceptions you have to manage and issues, but it shouldn't be a dumpster fire every single time. Yes, things happen out of your control, like we're going through right now, the uncertainty, the tariffs, and so forth, things that may never affect a business, because running a business is emotional. People go from abundance mindset to scarcity so quickly, and then they make decisions based on that rather than talking about what can we control and what can't we control and what do we need to do to align with, keep going with our plan or change it. But being able to keep people with a level head can make clear decisions. So if we can think about it that way, it sounds great because you and I are talking in this little bubble right here, but in a session, we can hash that out and give them a level of certainty thing. Like, okay, let's go and do this and we'll recheck our progress. And if we're on track in 90 days, so we're not hoping 9 months from now it'll work. We're just checking on ourselves continuously. So we can make adjustments as we go along. And hopefully there's a small adjustment.
You're help giving a buffer between stimulus and response. So, in philosophical terms, what you're talking about, the locus control of external or extrinsic or intrinsic stimuli, it's the Stoics would argue that the only thing you can control are your own thoughts, your own actions, your own responses to external stimuli. You can't control death, taxes, the weather, the
Right.
economy, you name it, anything outside of you. But to that line of thinking, it's so important. And this is probably another instance where the clarity break comes, shed some light to
Yes.
say, let's put on paper and get out into the world that which is in our internal mindset, like the thoughts, feelings we have, that I usually localize. I'm not a psychologist, but it's just an easy frame for me is like, does this problem give you more anxiety or give you more depression? Anxiety I define as having too many choices and not knowing what to do, so that's why you haven't made a decision. Depression making me feel hopeless and meaning you don't think you have an option, and we have to find out what that one option is. And I find that when I frame it that way, just bucketing the issue as one or the other, then usually gets them to say within sometimes 90 seconds what actually they think they should do. And I didn't have to tell
Yeah.
them what to do.
Yep. Yep.
And it sounds like what your unique experience with life coaching and EOS really helps you to keep the humanity and the human element and top of mind in these session rooms versus being just like process driven or like finance accounting driven or like Six Sigma black belt, like, organizational driven. I think it's an interesting, really interesting take there, Chris.
Well, you mentioned something because when I was running the life coach school, I wasn't a coach. I was running the business. And I thought, I'll figure out coaching later on because I again, I was running the back end of it. So I didn't deal with people for a long time. Then we had people. I didn't really deal with people either. I just said, here's the job, here's the process, see you later. And that wasn't obviously was not the right way to manage people. I've learned more about coaching people doing EOS because having that conversation, and you mentioned circumstance. Well, circumstance for me is not the same thought that you might have. So if we can talk about something, get it out in the open, I guarantee you a room of 5 people will have 7 different versions of the truth. Your truth, my truth, and the truth. Oh, or I'm sorry, my story, your story, and the truth. So if we talk about that and getting it out, and we use the whiteboard a lot, so we can put what they say on the board. People are like, oh, I said that 6 times. Maybe that's pretty important. Or why is that? And one person could say one thing that will change everybody's mind. Like, oh, that's right. We don't do that anymore. That doesn't affect us. Let's move on. Right. That's why we need the whole team engaged. And if you're thinking about that email or that phone call, you won't be able to think clearly about that. But we don't want to rely on one person. We want the team involved, everyone looking at the same thing, getting clarity or saying, here's what's going on. We need to make a decision and we need agreement, not consensus. The team has to understand as much as we know, and let's make a decision, move forward. And if we need to go get data and then make a decision, let's go get data. But we have to decide that. And then so the team knows what's going on. The team is moving forward. But again, the circumstance at hand isn't always, everybody has a different thought about that, right? And different feelings about that. And they would react differently and the results would be different. We want it to be all the same. We want the team to run as one team, seeing as one voice, one united team. So that's why it's critical the team bring these issues up and talk about them so they're all clear on that, because I guarantee you they would react differently if we had them separated in rooms and okay, what would you do with this situation? I do these 3 things. I do nothing, right? It is what it is. So if we can get them in a room, talk about it, write it down and make it either more tangible or less scary, it allows them to move forward and just decide.
More tangible or less scary. It's a good framework and how to
Or
solve.
things like, what do you want out of your business? And they tell me, I write it down. They're like, oh, I don't want that, because they can see it now, what they said. And it works really well when you have people that are not seeing eye to eye. And as an implementer, we just sit back and write stuff down. And it is amazing the person that's politicking for their view and the other person that's either not saying anything or says that one thing that is so impactful, but the other person doesn't hear it. But then I go, you two were talking about this for the last 15 minutes. Everybody's listening. Here's what you said. And they're like, I didn't say that. And the whole team's like, yes, you did. And again, we're trying to drive peer-to-peer accountability within the team so that they know, oh, yeah, I was trying to drive my version of the truth, and that's not necessarily the truth.
Man. Yeah, it's so interesting. One of the themes that we've had during this conversation that's been prevalent is just it's being able to take a step back or increase your altitude so that you can get a more objective bird's eye view on what the truth is, as opposed to being stuck in the weeds and seeing it through your, very, I don't want to say egotistical, but your very individual human lens.
Yes, sure, lens, yeah.
What are some of the observations you've had now running EOS sessions for the last 5 years or so that have really changed, your own perspective of life and business from prior when you started? And you've learned from your implementing.
Yes, that running a business is hard, but it should not be that hard. And there's strength in having the right people in the room. You need to get in your unique ability as fast as possible. Otherwise, you're really hurting the company. If you're a visionary, please go be a visionary and understand who you are, because that will be the best thing for us. We can all, I know, tell you how many people I've talked to that we give them the crystallizer assessment from Rocket Fuel. And they're like, oh, I am a visionary. Now I know it. Now that's okay. And I'm like, yes, it is okay. Go be you, right? Be that way. And the whole team knows what they do because they've already known it. They just don't know how to label it. So that being said, and also know, what do you want from the business? How we're going to get there, and then check and make sure we're still on the right track with that. And also have time to do other things, because you should not have the business. I live it. You can't have the business be everything. We talked about, selling and you have no identity anymore, things like that. So, the nice go in between of being all in and running a business, but also carving out time to be working on the business, but also time for yourself. Besides that, with your kids, your passions, and that's what we say with the EOS life in our world. If we can serve clients, but also have time to do things we love outside of this, be with our family, and we have a lot of implementers that came from running successful businesses, either in a business or sold or whatever it was. They come here as their last job, but it's
Mm.
their job for life because they know they can have as many clients as they want. They can work as much as they want, but they also I have my good buddy that I was in class with 5 years ago. He has grandkids now. His needs, his wants have changed, and his priorities have changed. So when he wants X number of clients and the right clients for him, which is what we want, serve the ideal client for you. What's your niche? And also be able to go home and enjoy what you want to enjoy and not feel the grind of having to run a business and make $10 million or whatever the number is, right? Just be and getting clarity out again, where are we going and how we're going to get there and what will work for you. And I talk to my leaders all the time. Are we still on track? Are you, because some people say I want to do 100 million and check with them at 50 and they're like, I'm good. Like they've run their race and they're good. And that's totally fine because it changes what we need to do next. And that's why I love about this business. I can run my own practice, serve as many people as I want to, because they're in different phases of their journey. It's typically 2 years. If I start somebody today, they may graduate in 3 years or a year and a half, depending on how fast or slow they are. And somebody starts a month from now or 3 months from now, they have a different track, but they're on the same journey.
Interesting. So what are some of the let me phrase it this way. Are you on track for your EOS business? What are your goals for your EOS business? And has that changed since you started to today?
Yes. When I started 5 years ago, again, during COVID, there was a lot of days in my own house with just me and the dogs walking around trying to figure out who should I call and who needs my help. And really this is a business for me is help as many people as I can who I resonate with, typically family-owned businesses, service-based businesses, professional companies, and people that just are struggling and they just need help. And if I can take my years of experience and whittle them down to days for them so they can start getting traction, if you want to use the word, they can get unstuck quicker. That makes me happy. That's what I get up for. And I love hearing people's story and see if I can just be of service. If nothing else, send them a free book. And like, I don't have time to read that. I'm like, ooh, you should spend more time then. If you don't have time to carve out a couple hours to read, you're not growing. You're basically treading water.
So do you have like a practice where you set a certain amount of hours per week personally where you read?
Yes. Typically, there were times when I was spending half a day reading. It just depends on what my client load is. Typically, most days it's walking my dog, listen to an audiobook, and it bounces between business books, coaching books, or just to like listen to David Grohl and his life story. It was just something that was inspirational. It depends what comes up. And I have a whole stack of books I have to get to, kind of thing. If you know Strategic Coach, every time we go there, we get books. So
Yep. Strategic Coach is Dan Sullivan's.
Dan Sullivan,
program.
yeah. 10X is easier than 2X, all those great books. He has just a side plug. He makes a lot of his library, the books are less than 2 hours long. They're designed so you can read them on the way home from a flight. And so that makes it a little bit easier. But again, I realized I talk to somebody and hear something. I'm like, I need to know more about that. Like you said, Lean Six Sigma and things like that. How does that align with an EOS company? And we align perfectly because we manage the human energy, but then your results need to line up with the Sigma, Lean Six, and stuff like that. And so that I started going down that rabbit hole when I heard that question from a potential client. So there's always opportunity. I got a stack of books right here, and EOS keeps making more books, so I have nothing but time to read more books. But again, if I have one client a month or 20 clients a month, there's always time to take the dog for a walk and listen to something that just gets your mind off it.
That's somewhat like your dog walking sounds like part and parcel, an unofficial clarity break that you make time for.
Yeah. And like this morning, I got up early, took him outside. I'm like, and I say this specifically, this is a beautiful morning. and it
Mm.
sort of like sets off the day. Now it's going to get hot in Texas. It is what it is. It's fine. But spring here and fall here is amazing. And you just honestly walk around. It's beautiful. And he's happy. I'm happy. And so I come back home and I'm like, I'm ready for the day. I'm ready to start talking to people and just that or going, if I either that or go to the gym. But in the gym, I'm just focused on form and things like that. But that's my typically my either setup for the day or my release if something if you have a like if you have a tough session and it doesn't go as planned and there's some crying and things like that, you might need to take a walk because they take as a leader in the room, it takes a lot out of you too if you're emotionally involved with them.
Right. That's interesting. Chris, I have a lot to think about. And I probably, as you can see, I have a dog in the back who
Yeah, yeah,
I may pencil in as my clarity breaks, walking him more often intentionally, right? For my own selfish reasons. But no, I really appreciate you sharing your experience and your thoughts, especially around the EOS life and how to better manage human energy. I think it's been incredibly important. And for anyone listening, my only ask, other than share the show if you enjoyed the conversation, is to take some time for clarity breaks. Take some time to work on you and get what's inside the bottle, whether that's spicy, toxic,
yeah.
or just overflowing, too much pressure. Get it out, and you'll see that it's a lot more manageable once it's out. Um, Chris, my last question, not super deep, is where can people get in touch with you and follow you and learn more?
Yes, easy. I'm on LinkedIn, Chris Castillo. It says EOS all over the page, or just give me a call, 916-717-3332. I've had that number forever and I still get calls from my other businesses. I'm like, oh, you worked with me 15 years ago. I'm like, I don't do that anymore. But
Mhm.
uh, yeah, LinkedIn's easier because there's content there. You can see try to post as much as possible. I post with my clients. I'm like, yeah, we just finished a session and we solved this problem. And I try to strive for them to be happy at the end, but sometimes it's, no, we got to get back to work. And that's again, you have a plan until you get hit in the face. And then you have to figure out how to make the day valuable for them. So I love to talk to anybody, hear your story, see if I can be of service. The first session's free to see if your team, I need the team to want it so we can do great work. And then you get to decide if nothing else, you get a free book.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right, everyone. That's it for today. Be well. Take some clarity breaks.